I started this during the regular podcast by talking about this piece Jennifer Rubin has at the Washington Post about it's time for Biden to stop using the weasel words. That's not what she said, but that's essentially what she meant. And go after this white grievance industry, poor white people. Oh my God, that's like poor Christians, right? She mentions that before he left for Uvalde, Texas on Saturday, he was talking to graduates at the University of Delaware. And he said this, quote, "In the face of such destructive forces, we have to stand stronger." Well, in the first place, the forces that he talks about, that's not the problem. There is one political movement in this country, fascist Christianity. It's a political movement. And these people, these so-called Republicans who are spouting this anti-American bullshit is threatening functional democracy. That's where the problem is. It's these, I don't know what happened to the Republican Party, but it's gone. It's dead. It was eaten alive by these fascist Christians. And Jennifer points out it's not the plague of polarization. How many times have we heard that? Or distrust, all this other bullshit that has turned our society into what it is slowly turning into. She writes that, bluntly put, we are in deep trouble because a major party rationalizes both intense selfishness and deprivation of others' rights to vote, to make independent decisions about reproduction, to be treated with respect. And this intense selfishness that these fascist Christian devils expose constantly is, well, like the refusal to undertake even minor inconveniences like wearing a goddamn mask when there's a pandemic afoot, or gun background checks that's there for the protection of all of us. This is what the white grievance industry has reduced this country to. And she points out that there is a through line between celebration of this filthy bastard Trump, who demeans women, excuses neo-Nazis, refuses to accept election results, a through line between that and the fascist Christian, the Republican Party's appeals to white grievance and their contempt for political compromise and their displays of this filthy bullshit, poisonous so-called masculinity, like these militia types who run around like they were real men dressed up in military uniforms. This white grievance industry is what Jennifer calls this. And it includes right-wing media and these politicians and these pundits and these think tanks. But it's this that keeps voters in a constant state of rage over the loss of a society in which far fewer women competed with men in the workplace. White power was largely unchallenged. Diversity was less pronounced. This is what the white grievance industry is putting out there. And it also has persuaded millions of white Americans that they're the victims of elites or the media or globalism or attacks on masculinity or something. Something. But what? Right? Attacks on masculinity or attacks on something. These fuckers can't even define it. Robert Jones, CEO of the Public Religion Research Institute, he recently wrote in Time magazine about the MAGA formula that was ascendant after this country elected its first black president. And he calls it, quote, the stoking of anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-black sentiment while making nativist appeals to the Christian right. And he points this out, quote, this so-called nostalgic appeals of Make America Great Again goes back to a 1950s America when white Christian churches were full And white Christians comprised a supermajority of the U.S. population. That's the period when we added "under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance and "in God we trust" to our currency. This is what MAGA means, folks. Make America great again. That world doesn't exist any more than the native people who lived here used to treat this country with respect and love and lived from it and lived on it. Those days are gone. Where are the native populations now? Reduced to fucking alcoholic ghettos on reservations. 1950s America doesn't exist either. So MAGA voters think everyone but them is the problem. They cast themselves as perpetual victims. They feel entitled to ignore the demands of a civilized society. And what are those demands? Well, Jennifer mentioned self-restraint, care for actually vulnerable people, pluralism, oh God, acceptance of political defeat. Those are just some of the demands of civilized society. This is what is required. But the irritation of these MAGA bastards, their irritation with mask wearing, covering up your nose and mouth during a pandemic, for Christ's sake, that gets elevated over the lives of the most susceptible to a deadly pandemic. Oh, I'm not going to wear a mask. That's my freedom. Well, what about the people that you might infect? Well, I'm not going to wear a mask. That's my freedom. And then the demands of these MAGA fucks, these Christian fascists, to display this armory of weapons means one thing, and we see it now with alarming regularity, and that is that school children become targets for acts of mass gun violence. And then the religious zealotry of these crazy bastards. And they honestly believe that Christianity is under attack. Christianity is doing the attacking. And because they feel that Christianity is under attack, oh my God, women can't have access to safe legal abortions, which is part of the privacy guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. The right to not have the state intrude its bony fucking Christian fingers into a woman's uterus? So, given all of this, and Jennifer has mentioned this before, and I've come around to thinking this too, under these conditions, Democrats or liberals or progressives, however you want to identify the non-MAGA scum, they would do well to forget this idea of partisanship and abandon the fantasy that normal people can reason with the unreasonable. I mean, that's impossible. Or shame the shameless into dropping this conspiracy bullshit and their lies. This idea, and I keep hearing this, we got to lower the temperature, the political temperature, or seeking unity with the very people intent on destroying the whole concept of United States. Doing that, attempting to do that, is counterproductive. Because like other filthy, rotten, divisive, toxic political movements, this MAGA crusade flourishes thanks to the collaboration of cynics, true believers, and the cult followers, the brain dead, the ones that follow Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example. And in turn, if democracy is going to survive in this country, it's going to depend on a broad-based coalition that, as Jennifer puts it, that rejects the MAGA crowd's reactionary aims and myths of white victimhood. And then she closes with this. Let me quote it direct. Democracy's survival demands that mainstream media prioritize candor about the nature of today's GOP over fake balance in political coverage. And it needs pro-democracy politicians to rise to the occasion with exacting truth-based language, not to fuzz up the stark reality of a democracy imperiled by one political party. End quote, Jennifer Rubin. Now, the one political party she's talking about, obviously, is the corpse, the zombie Republican Party. That is, it is dead. It was devoured. It is now Christian fascism. Of all the people, the white people who are warning and warning and warning about this Christian fascism, Jennifer Rubin is, in my opinion, more than anybody else, trying to make the point in her opinion column in the Washington Post how serious this shit is. How unbelievably violent these Christian fascists are. And what their ultimate game plan, their ultimate goal actually is.
Hi,
the destruction
Mike
of
Malloy
democracy.
here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.